Welcome to the course on evolution of air interface towards 5G. 5G is happening. Over the last few decades, the mobile communication industry has been working really very hard to provide us with seamless data connectivity and unequivocal quality of service. We have been experiencing an ever increasing data rates as well as stupendous coverage in different regions which were not even under the coverage of basic mobile services. It has almost become a basic necessity of modern life. The term 5G appears to be coming around 2020, but rather it is a process of evolution which has been happening over the past few decades. If we look at these terminologies 5G, 4G, 3G, 2G and so on, they have been happening at intervals of around 10 years. That is the time it takes, roughly speaking, for one standard from ideation to the point where it is practically realized and technologies are deployed. Now, one may be wondering about these terminologies, why this kind of a terminology? In reality, there has been a continuous progression over the different generations, and the technology did not wait for a 10-year cycle to suddenly appear as a new avatar. So, there has been releases, and you might also be familiar that there had been stages where the terms such as 2.5G, 3.9G and so on and so forth has been happening. So, this clearly shows that it is a process of evolution through which things have been moving, but only at certain stages the changes has been so much. One can say there has been tectonic shifts in the way the network architecture has evolved as well as the signaling methods have evolved. Under this, we are of course going to address what is there in 5G. If we look at 5G, there has been development in the core network side as well as in the signaling side. In this particular course, we will focus more on the signaling aspects, as the name clearly suggests, evolution of air interface towards 5G. When we talk about the air interface, it is part of the radio access network. If we look into the words, radio clearly indicates wireless propagation of signals, and access network clearly means the part of the network which allows access to the end user devices into the network. So, it is almost the last mile. So, if we take 5G into account, there has been tremendous and massive amount of changes over the past few generations of technologies. So, we will take a peep into what all comprises 5G in this particular introductory lecture and also provide you with an overview of what we are going to cover in this particular lecture. So, if we look at the scenarios that 5G is supposed to handle, there is a scenario for tactile internet, which means facilities through which we are going to access the internet at very low amount of delays, through which real time control of mechanisms, devices could be done. There are also scenarios for gigabit wireless, that means in situations where you require very high amount of data rate, which is much beyond what has been provided by 4G, is also expected to be supported by 5G. So, like this, the new thing which was not prevalent in the earlier generations is machine type communications. There has been evolution of various requirements, and as we were talking about the generations, what is important to realize is that as we get used to technologies, new requirements come in. So, over the years, new requirements have piled up, and 5G is supposed to address all those which could not be addressed sufficiently well by its previous avatar, that is the 4G. So, moving ahead, we look at super real time applications, super reliable. There is a mode for ultra reliable communications like fail safe communication systems, which are also supposed to be supported by 5G. There would be great services in crowd. That means when there are a huge number of people accumulated in one small local region, the number of devices accessing the network is huge. So, to provide connectivity to them is not a very simple job. 5G uses methods to address such challenging situations. So, overall, there are various kinds of scenarios which are to be addressed and various technical requirements which these scenarios translate to, which 5G is provided to support. So, very high bit rate, very low delay, accessibility for large crowds, volumes in a small area, wide coverage, high reliability, and all those things are supposed to be provided by 5G. Now, towards this, if we look into the air interface, there are various things which the air interface provides. For example, the air interface hopes to provide at least 10 times the throughput of earlier generations, almost fiber like throughput. It also expects to decrease the latency to provide tactile internet like services, machine type communications, 10-folds decrease, that is one of the targets. Spectral efficiency is one of the very important things which is the target of most wireless communication engineers or researchers, because spectrum is finite, we all know about that. So, if we can increase the spectral efficiency, we can support more and more data volumes. As you know that spectrum is a fixed amount of bandwidth, whereas if you look at the amount of services in demand, it is growing like anything. So, it is desired that spectrum efficiency is at least 3 times the previous versions and capacity is 100 times that of the earlier versions. Of course, with the new solutions that have evolved, probably 5G is going to provide much beyond these requirements. It is also required that the cost per bit comes down much lower than previous versions, and it has been happening over the previous generations as well. So, if 5G is able to support more number of bits per unit of spectrum, then it is a natural consequence that the cost per bit would also go down. So, if we look at the requirements that 5G has set, as can be seen in this particular picture, peak data rates of around 20 Gbps, user data rates of 100 Mbps or even more, mobility of 500 kilometers per hour or even better, latency 1 millisecond or lower, probably up to 1 millisecond is of course what is desirable. 10 to the power of 6 devices per kilometer squared is expected to be supported, as well as network energy efficiency 100 times of the previous versions. In this particular course, we aim to cover the different air interface methods or signal processing schemes or overall procedures which aim or which have the power or capabilities to provide these kind of services or these kind of data rate requirements. Overall, if we take a look at the new radio, that is the terminology which is used for 5G. The 5G NR is the term which is being used in short form for new radio. There is a diverse deployment scenario, there is variety of spectrum, and there is a diverse set of services and devices which are supposed to coexist. So, the design of 5G new radio is supposed to support the diverse deployment scenarios, access diverse spectrum, as well as support various kinds of devices like low end IoT devices to very high data rate services for entertainments and other facilities. So, in this particular course, we intend to cover the various solutions which have been generated and which are supposed to be the engine for 5G air interface. Towards this, we would like to mention that some of the aspects which we will cover are waveforms, which is very important. So, as you can see in one of the top ones that is here, it says about scalable OFDM numerology. That means, over the past decade there has been huge amount of work on the waveforms that are going to be part of 5G, but what has evolved, there is a modification of OFDM which is very critical to support the new generations. So, we will talk about them. A significant part will be about the waveforms. We will also talk about massive MIMO, we will talk about beamforming techniques, about non-orthogonal multiple access, device to device architectures, millimeter wave communications, to give you an overview of the different technologies which are supposed to be the core or the heart of 5G air interface. So, we have divided the modules in different parts which can be accessible from the course website, and the course material that we will be using will be primarily based on this particular book which has been released with the same title, and this particular book is has been provided by the publishers to be available at Google Books in the soft copy also. So, you can procure this particular book as a soft copy, which is a very low priced version they have created. The hard copy is also accessible in India through this particular distributor, the Viva Books, and what they said is it's available through online as well. So there are various ways you can access the resources. Along with it, whatever we discuss will also provide as the basic material which serves it. This particular course was originally planned for a very short duration because 5G is a massive collection of technologies, and it's not possible to go into details of each one of them in any such course. But with due and sincere advice, we have been asked to make it a little bit longer, which is the current version of the course, and to support various kinds of audience, we plan to provide initial preliminary parts which provide the foundation of the technology, followed by the use cases and applications where we show how these kind of things which are in basic rudimentary elementary form connect together to provide the kinds of benefits which 5G is expected to provide. We have been working on these things for the past 10 years at IIT Kharagpur in our labs, and I'll show you a glimpse of some of the facilities that we have been using. So we have been using some MIMO testbed architectures. We have also got some advanced facilities in our lab, and if at any point of time you're interested to come and visit us, we'll be very happy. And we have been doing all kinds of things that are necessary to generate, or which have been directly in line with the 5G communication systems. So most of the work we have been doing over here are aligned with 5G, and very interestingly, the work on waveform, which we'll discuss in details, what we have done over here has a very strong bearing upon the new radio air interface which have been standardized by 5G. So overall, I welcome you all to be a part of this course, so that we are prepared before 5G is launched, and we are aware of the foundation and core technologies which are running their interface, which are going to provide us with the much expected super connectivity which the previous generations have provided only to a limited facility. Thank you.